Hi, welcome to the Worthy Physician Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Sapna Shah-Hawk, a board-certified internal medicine physician. Keep life simple. You are human. You are worthy. Remember what matters to you. Our goal is to help physicians remember this and to make it a reality through addressing various components of physician burnout via podcast. This is meant to be used as a tool to help guide physicians. It does not take place of professional medical help. Opinions reflected in this are my own. Today, in this episode of the Worthy Physician Podcast, I sat down and talked with Randy Silkwood. He is described as a rebel who will go against the grain to find spirituality in anything. He is the host of the Reframed podcast, as well as the blog and coaching website. We sat down and talked about spirituality, mindfulness, reconnecting, and standing in your power. Sit back, listen, and enjoy. Thank you very much for being here and taking your time. Tell me who you are and what you do.
Well, thank you so much, Sepra, for having me. My name is Randy Silkwood. I am a personal power. It's a big fancy title, right? So it had to be branded somewhere.
Right.
But a coach, a speaker, really an advocate for soulful and meaningful connections with people. My baseline that I operate from is a matter of working with your spiritual self and your spirituality, your mindset practices, mental health matters, and connection. Because I've come to believe that in order to live a life where we're truly engaged with our real self, our genuine self, it's a combination of connecting your spiritual practice, whatever it may be, your mindset, mental health, and your connection with the world around you. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. And I agree 100%. I know we were talking about some of these things prior to. It's so interwoven, I think, into who we are as human beings. So why would I have you on a podcast about physician burnout? And I think the first thing that really stuck out to me was, number one, mental health. Number two, the suicide prevention. It sounds like you're pretty much an advocate for that. For this podcast, and the origin is really huge because, number one, physicians, we're great at trying to heal others, but we probably make the worst patients. We operate in a system where when we try to take that step back, it is penalized instead of rewarded. So what is your insight on when do you tell your clients to push that pause button? What are some of the warning signs?
The pause button. So really to qualify, the pause button, we say pause or mindfulness, right? But
right.
I really encourage everyone to take an intentional pause at least once a week. I don't know what everyone's schedules look like. Ideally for me, I take one day a week, and that's my pause button. Some people don't have that opportunity, but first off, making sure that you're pressing that pause button with intention. Oftentimes we wait because we keep pushing ourselves. We're our own worst critic, and we will continue to push ourselves until we're past that point, so kind of that point of no return.
Right.
I always advocate creating an environment for yourself that's a time for yourself and a place for you. So take it as at least once a week, depending on how you feel.
Sure. And when you say intentional, are you giving the listener permission to just be? I mean, to just do nothing, to just be, to enjoy life?
Absolutely, to just be. We've forgotten how to be still, be at peace. Some people like to meditate. I have one client who loves to practice Zen. I love the idea. I'm going to tell you, I'm a mover and a shaker, so I can't sit down for a
Right.
long time, but my me time is customized to me. As I was sharing with you, on the weekends, I like, especially one day, I completely shut off the phone, social media. I'm up on a horse out in nature.
Right.
Whatever is going to really connect you through, I think, stillness and bring you to an appreciation of the opportunity of life. We get so busy living and operating in the should zone or the have tos that we really don't have the opportunity to get to the I get to zone where we cultivate gratitude.
Sure. And we know that, number one, you have a client for next summer, because I would love to come out there and do some horseback riding and trail with you.
Come on.
That's going to be on the books. And I'm serious, because, we're in fluorescent lights, whether it be in the office or the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
We're not built for that. Being outside, being in nature,
Mm-hmm.
being grounded, being rooted. So when people say I take off my shoes and I go play in the dirt, I think that is something that we've forgotten how to do, and how we connect with nature, because there is energy within the earth. So by going out and disconnecting from the computer, which can actually trigger anxiety, as we're learning, that's huge.
Yes, getting out in nature, if that's your thing, I recommend it for everybody, because there's so many, and I didn't even know this before, but just kind of learning a little bit about trees. There's certain trees that release certain chemicals that can help fight off inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
So many different things. I think it's called Shorin Yoku. It's a Japanese technique for forest bathing. It's also just an incredible opportunity to put yourself in nature and to just be present.
Sure.
Because physicians, anyone who works in the medical field, you're in a war zone, and from so many angles, the environment, there's not enough, of course, windows, natural light. We can talk about all of those are really barriers to a holistic approach of mental health.
Sure. Yeah, and that's not even bringing into the system and the expectations and the culture. And
Right.
and that's why, does the system need to change? Yes, but it's going to be a long time until that happens.
Absolutely.
And currently we need to take in that self-inventory and see where we are on this spectrum of, hey, is everything okay? And if it's not, what does that look like? So we've addressed, it's okay to push that pause button, and you need to push that pause button. Learn to exist, learn to be happy. And you mentioned gratitude. Why is showing gratitude so important?
That's such a good question. I love when I get to talk about gratitude. So thanks for opening up the floor for that.
Yeah.
Gratitude is so important because it allows us the opportunity to really fill ourselves up with reasons that life is okay. Now, I think it would be remiss to say, if you're having a really bad day, I'm not going to say, hey, write 10 things you're grateful for. That's dismissive of the experience.
Right.
But I love to do gratitude in my mornings. And as a ritual, I try to scan the past 24 hours of my life and find unique examples of things to be grateful for. Mm-hmm. Sometimes when we start, I'm grateful for coffee, I'm grateful for good weather, etc. But it's really as we begin to sift through even the past 24 hours, you can start to see that you're more than just existing.
Right.
But you're touching the outer layer of what I believe personal power to be.
And can you go a little bit more into what you believe personal power is?
Absolutely. So personal power, there's this big play. I try not to use the word authenticity. I think it's so overplayed.
It is.
The minute that they start to put it on a cup, I'm done with it. Like, it's no longer my word.
Right.
So personal power is coming to that place within your being and understanding who you are. We get so focused on especially physicians, in the doing. You are not what you do. You're
Right.
not at your core. You're a mom. You're passionate about your boots and your leather jacket, and there's so much to your existence that's outside of what you do. What you do merely allows you the opportunity to do, or should do, more of what you enjoy.
Right. And I think that's where medicine has, we had been talking about the culture beforehand. We don't have this culture of uh it's okay to stop and take care of yourself, and it's okay to have things outside of medicine that define you. And I have found myself over the last couple of years, because of um, loss of colleagues via suicide and other things, that I've really had to go back and really said, okay, I have to push this pause button, because if I don't, I'm going to leave medicine. I'd rather go be a bartender and at least not have all the liability, right?
Right.
So I've had to put some barriers in my personal life. I only work 3 days a week. I have plenty of time with my family, and on those days, other things are really non-existent. I can enjoy still wearing my boots and my leather jacket to clinic, and not out the door, never coming back in again.
Right.
How would one potentially know that they have to maybe hit that pause button, or maybe look at what makes them grateful? Because sometimes, I mean, it's difficult to develop a habit, particularly when it is something that has not been ingrained in you in this culture of medicine, or maybe it was part of you beforehand, but sometimes it gets lost. How does one regain that?
First thing that I would say to you or anyone who asked me this question is be the rebel. We all like to rebel, right?
Yeah.
Be the rebel and start that. Gratitude and practicing it within 6 weeks, 6 days, 6 months, whatever it is, will begin to show up within your being, within your character. Like there's that book, in the title, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff.
Yes.
When you realize that, this thing, your partner, sometimes our partners get aggravating and we can be snappy when we're stressed and tired. When you can relate and relive a moment, but this time when it happens or somebody irritates you, you respond with joy. Like, that's a benefit. So practicing gratitude, it's going to be hard, but it's like getting up in the morning to go running or go for a walk. It takes time and effort, but the biggest thing that it takes is a belief and a desire for you to become a more fuller version of who you want to be.
And I think anybody at any point in their life could benefit from that, because wherever we start out, that can always just get better. Is that correct?
Yeah, no matter where you are, I feel like there should be a class that they teach little ones that's about daily gratitude, like brush your teeth, clean, do your hair, take a shower, practice your gratitude. It's fundamental. And it sounds so cliche because that's so simple. But really, the most powerful things in your life are always going to be the simple ones. I think for physicians, I think it's very hard for two things, because you're torn between two worlds.
Right.
The culture that's within the medical profession, and then you've got the culture that's on the outside.
Right.
My family all is in the medical profession. My sister's husband's a physician. My sister's a nurse prac. And I've grown up seeing that kind of painful double standard. And there's all of these assumptions. People in the office have these assumptions of what you need to do or what you should do. The medical community, you have to be careful about what you say and how you go about your life, because again, the community is so small. Then on the outside, society has this very unrealistic belief of what a doctor is.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that I hear more than anything, and I have heard more than anything, that's absolutely heartbreaking is that it's always about the income. I don't know if you've had that experience, but I always have heard such great emphasis on the income aspect.
There is, and that I think that is also because we start a decade behind everybody else.
Yeah.
And then also the amount of debt. I think that if you look at the trajectory of what medical school was in the 1990s versus I came out with $500,000 from a state school. That was just med school.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, Kansas has a student loan forgiveness program if you go out into an underserved area, which really aligned with my values of not working for a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I came out to Winfield, and I love it here. It's a very accepting community, very physician friendly, and the patients I absolutely love. So I'm going to be here for a while. I can see myself retiring here, but it took me a few maneuvers to get to this spot where, yes, the income and the quality of life are balanced.
Right.
Now I could go make double, but I would have to probably work every weekend, work every holiday, and you can't pay me enough to be away from my kids for Christmas. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah. And that's the choice. And you're already in your personal power zone. You're really starting to warm that up because you know what you're worth and you understand there is an exchange.
Yes. And not everything has a monetary value.
No.
And that's what people don't understand.
There's an energetic one, right? You can't be at two places at once.
Right.
Like economics, there's no such thing as a free lunch. It's going to cost somewhere, but really, this is how I live my philosophy. I would rather it cost me money than my energy. I want to build the memories and live a life that I get to live, not a life that I have to live.
I could not have said that better myself. I agree 100%.
Not on track. Yeah, I love that.
But the thing is that for me to realize that, I lost a colleague to suicide, and the thing is that 300 to 400 physicians die by suicide a year.
Mm-hmm.
And the exit strategy of 20% of the other physicians there's an exit strategy over the next couple of years. So that's huge. Mm-hmm. And a lot of physicians are, unfortunately, they don't have that insight. So that's the reason why I'm trying to bring these different topics on.
Good.
So how do you learn to thrive in chaos?
Thriving in chaos. I love that. That's such a good question. And again, to anyone who, and you touched my heart talking about, your friend who committed suicide. That is such a personal pain that just goes so deep within. And to anyone who is or has been, is looking at that as thinking that's an option, my first response is find your person to connect with, be vulnerable, and make the conscious choice, because you are so much more than this one moment and this one thing. There's so much more to life. So there was your question was, how do we thrive in the chaos? Again, thriving is one of those words. It's not a cup. I need new words, Give me some new words. Thriving in the chaos comes from the point of backtracking. Okay, so going into your spirituality. What are your spiritual practices? You have to have something that's going to connect you to your higher power, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is if you are always conscious and you're always connected, understanding that you are above all loved. You're perfect. And I do believe this. You hear this thought that, oh, we're broken. I am so over hearing about how everybody is broken. We're all damaged. No, we've all had experiences that we have to overcome. But you're not damaged. You're not imperfect. There's nothing that you'll ever go through that's not reversible. So I think it starts with thriving there. It starts with your spiritual practice, whatever it is. If it's walking around barefoot, that's my favorite thing to do on lunch. I throw off my shoes and I walk around my yard. And then your mindset. And your mindset begins not with self-help books, but it begins with, I'm accepting me in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's mindfulness, but I love mindfulness because it's spiritual, but it's also so reflective.
Right.
Helps you pause, take that breath. And then when you really realize that, that allows you to connect with not only the people, but the world around you. Because there's always going to be chaos. There's always going to be stress. There are always going to be so much going on. But again, we are so much bigger than that moment.
Mm-hmm.
We're always worried, and I find myself getting there too. I haven't evolved to that level, but we're going to be worried about, am I doing it right? Am I doing the best job? I couldn't imagine having somebody's life in my hands as most physicians do. As a coach, I think that sometimes I have my life in people's hands in a different aspect, and that's a tremendous amount of responsibility.
Right.
But we can't give our best unless we truly know that we are at our best.
Right.
And forgiveness plays a huge role. There's liability insurance and things like that. And my sister was sharing with me as we were kind of going through some of your previous episodes.
Yes.
She just loves it. But you have to understand who you are and that mistakes happen. You're more than your mistakes. You're more than your traumas. We're more than all of this.
Right.
So as a physician, being able to thrive in chaos, I think, involves consciously working on creating the conversations around you, filling your spiritual life up with whatever it is, and your mindset. And if you're exposed, and I know how that the medical community can be so diversified, but you have to find your tribe.
Yes.
You have to find your sweet spot with people, because again, you're going to be the sum total of your average five. I used to have terrible friends and a terrible mindset. And so I changed and began to direct. And now, I'm proud to say I'm the sum, the average of my five. So.
No, thank you for that insight. Because one thing I noticed that, yeah, we're we're told to practice mindfulness. But I think what is lacking there is, you're getting it right when you can respond instead of with anger with, oh, well, that's not a big deal, because, and then that insight of, whoa, this is not normal that I'm getting irritated at these small things. This is not me. I need to take a step back.
And that's what I love what you just said, because we often react with, I'm angry, I'm stressed. A lot of the times you're having angry thoughts or you're feeling angry, but your identity is not your anger. Your identity isn't rooted in your emotion. You're experiencing an emotion.
Right.
That's all that is. And not to dismiss the emotion, but you are more than that moment and you're more than that emotion. It's really coming to the place where you can understand and practice it correctly. Be experimental with whatever your mindset practice is, your mindfulness practice. Be experimental, because what's going to work for somebody may not work for you.
Right.
I spent years so frustrated because I just couldn't get meditation down. I couldn't.
Right.
I couldn't connect. My mind was here, was there. I'm checking my phone. It wasn't my jam, but my meditation is when I'm skateboarding.
Right.
I cheat. I have my Weimaraner here, and she'll pull me on my skateboard. So we skateboard around the lake, and we just have a great time.
Yeah.
It allows me to shut down.
Right.
Or when I'm up and I'm riding on a horse, I can just phase out the world and just be in that moment. And so whatever it looks like, be curious, because we're not all here to be contemplative monks in our mindful practices.
Right. No, and I really appreciate your time and just your insight, because I think it's so important that we have a non-physician on here saying, yeah, this is exact, this is some insight, because what you've said about having something to outside of medicine is not our identity, mindfulness, disconnecting, reconnecting with the self. That's a message that a lot of individuals that have been on before have said. So I really love how this ties it all together.
Well, no, it's my pleasure. And I think the last thing that I'll say is that this is the most important element in being a human, being true to yourself, stepping into that personal power, defining it through healing, exploration. It's not just mindfulness or prayer, but it's the whole experience. It's the healing experience, and the deeper you go. And the moment that you really understand that you've stepped into personal power is when you can give away all the love in the world, expecting nothing in return. And the biggest hallmark that I want to share with everybody that's listening is coming to that place where understanding that everybody wants to be seen, everybody wants to be heard, and they need to know what they're doing makes a difference.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Randy. And can you tell our listeners where they can find out more about you or connect with you?
Absolutely. You can connect with me on randysilkwood.com. The Reframed with Randy Silkwood podcast is one that I do. Comes out every Sunday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and soon will be available on iHeartRadio.
Very cool. Well, thank you very much. And
thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. This concludes the podcast. Subscribe, tell a friend, follow us at www.theworthyphysician.com. Remember, you are worthy, you are human. Take care.
Start again the second time.